Ferdinand the Bull. Walt Disney presents Ferdinand the Bull. Adopted from the story and illustrated by Munro Leaf and Robert Lawson. Color by Technicolor. You see a big castle, and then it pans down and you see a pasture with a bunch of young calves running around and playing and jumping and kicking. But there is one lone black calf who is off by himself smelling the flowers. The other calves are running and jumping and bucking, playing with each other, headbutting, and the lone black calf is off by himself, and he wanders underneath a tree, a nice shady tree, and sits down underneath the tree and smells the flowers that are growing there. Looks like he's enjoying himself. Now you see a mother cow with a bell around her neck, and she starts walking over to the tree where the black calf is sitting, and she starts speaking to him. The black calf is listening and shakes his head and talks back to her about something. He looks like he's very content underneath the tree. The mother cow walks away and then stops as if she's surprised and kind of looks angry and then walks away. And the black calf is continued sitting underneath the tree watching the butterflies. Now you see the tree, and it shows marks in the tree where it says Ferdinand 1 años, Ferdinand 2 años, Ferdinand 3 years. So now you know that Ferdinand is 3 years old, and he is a large, fearsome-looking bull, and the other bulls are gathered under a tree with a poster pinned to it about a bullfight that's coming up. But Ferdinand is not by the poster. He is sitting underneath his favorite tree, sniffing the flowers. Now you see several men walking from around a wall, all shapes and sizes of men with purple hats, red hats, yellow hats, sombreros, and they're walking towards the pasture where the bulls are. And the bulls see them and they get very excited and start running around and throwing each other with their horns, running into each other, showing how strong they are to these men. And the men are watching them and kind of analyzing them and deciding what they want to think of them. Ferdinand, on the other hand, is still whimsically walking along and sniffing the flowers and sitting underneath his tree. And as he goes to sit down, he accidentally sits down on a flower with a bee underneath it, and it stings him, and he's surprised, and he starts running and running. And you can tell where the bee stung him hurts, and he runs through the brick wall, and he continues to run, and he's just in a panic, and he runs through the group of bulls, sending them flying. And the men that were watching the other group of bulls are very excited to see him. But then Ferdinand turns around and he is headed towards the group of men, and they scatter, and he runs through the tree, sending the tree flying. And the men are very excited to see Ferdinand and how powerful he is and how scary he is. So they rejoice. And now Ferdinand is in a wagon headed towards Madrid. The wagon is being pulled by several donkeys. And there's a sign saying Madrid, pointing in the direction that they're headed. And now they've arrived in Madrid, and you can see there's a Colosseum and flags. There's a festival and a poster saying Ferdinand. And now you see several women dressed very nicely walking into the stands of the Colosseum. The Colosseum is huge, and it is packed full of people. Down in the bottom of the Colosseum, the arena, there is an announcer on a horse and several matadors that are all walking in together, all of shapes and sizes, and horsemen that are walking in with their spears, and they're decked out in their outfits. And then comes the matador. You can tell he's very popular and well known. He's dressed very nicely with his red cape, and he's smiling, his teeth is shining, and then an assistant walks behind him carrying his sword. And he stops and he takes his hat off and he bows to the audience, announcing that he is there. And women throw him flowers, and he catches the bouquet of flowers. And he looks very proud of himself, and he smells them. He's very happy. And now the gates open for the bull to come out. and he doesn't come out. Instead, Ferdinand peeks his head around the gate, and he looks very scared, and he brings his head back in, and he looks again, and the other matadors are scared to death, so they jump and they run away, and the horsemen run away, and the very well-known matador is very scared. But Ferdinand sees the bouquet of flowers that the matador is carrying and runs after them. And the matador is terrified, and he jumps out of his shoes and leaves the flowers on the ground and runs away. And Ferdinand comes to a stop by the bouquet of flowers and sniffs them and smells them, and he's perfectly content sitting there. The other matadors are outraged, and the horsemen are outraged, and they're teasing him and taunting him. So the professional matador comes up, and he starts yelling at Ferdinand to do something, and he hides behind his cape, but Ferdinand still doesn't do anything. So he's very mad, and he rips his cape, and now he starts making faces at Ferdinand and teasing him, sticking his tongue out. And that still does not taunt him enough, and he doesn't do anything. Ferdinand still sits there, sniffing the flowers, and the matador is very mad, and his face turns red. He breaks his sword over his knee and starts stomping his feet like a 2-year-old, tears his hair out. And Ferdinand still doesn't pay attention. He's just playing with the flowers and sniffing them and blowing them in the air. Now the matador is on his hands and knees, begging him, pleading him to do something. Ferdinand does not pay any attention. The matador is so mad that he rips his clothes off, and on his chest is a tattoo of a daisy. And Ferdinand sees that, and he's very excited. So he licks the daisy on his chest, and the matador starts crying and stomping his feet like a 2-year-old and throwing a tantrum, rolling on the floor, kicking his feet, because Ferdinand just wouldn't do anything. So, in the end, because he wouldn't do anything, he is dragged out of the arena by 2 donkeys. And it shows Ferdinand being toted back in the wagon back to his pasture. And he goes back to sitting underneath his tree, sniffing the flowers, looking very content. And then it zooms out to show a silhouette of Ferdinand sitting underneath his tree. The end.